and Lily. Today I'm going to read you a story, The Witches by Roald Dahl, from page 112 to page 123. Okay, let's read it. Metamorphosis. I remember thinking to myself, there's no escape for me now. Even if I make a run for it and manage to dodge the lot of them, I still won't get up because the doors are chained and locked. I'm finished. I'm done for. Oh, Grandmama, what are they going to do with me? I looked around and I saw a hideous painted and powdered witch's paint, a face staring down at me, and the face opened its mouth and yelled triumphantly, "It's here! It's behind the screen! Come and get it!" The witch reached out a gloved hand and grabbed me by the hair, but I twisted free and jumped away. I ran. Oh, how I ran! The sheer terror of it or put wings on my feet. I flew around the outside of the great ballroom, and not one of them had a chance of catching me. As I came level with the doors, I paused and tried to open them, but the big chains was on them, and they didn't even rattle. The witches were not bothering to chase me. They simply stood there in small groups, watching me and knowing for certain that there was no way I could escape. Several of them were holding their noses with gloved fingers, and there were cries of "Pooh! What a stink! We can't stand this much longer!" "Catch them, you idiots!" screamed the Grand-Eyed Witch from up on the platform. "Spread out in a line across the room and close it on, and grab it. Corner this filthy little grumble and seize it, and bring it up here to me." The witches spread out as they were told. They advanced towards me, some from one end, some from the other, and some came down the middle between the rows of empty chairs. They were bound to get me now. They had me cornered. From sheer and absolute terror, I began to scream, "Help!" I screamed, turning my head towards the doors in the hope that somebody outside might hear me. "Help! Help! Help!" "Get it!" shouted the Grand-Eyed Witch. "Grab for it! Stop it yelling!" They rushed at me then, and about 5 of them grabbed me by the arms and the legs and lifted me clear of the ground. I went on screaming, but one of them clapped a gloved hand over my mouth, and that stopped me. "Bring it here!" shouted the Grand-Eyed Witch. "Bring it, the spying little worm, up here to me." I was carried onto the platform with my arms and legs held tight by many hands, and I lay there suspended in the air, facing the ceiling. I saw the Grand-Eyed Witch standing over me, grinning at me in the most horrible way. She held up in the small blue bottle of mouse maker, and she said, "Now for a little medicine. Hold his nose to make him mouth his mouth." Strong fingers pinched my nose. I kept my mouth closed tight and held my breath, but I couldn't do it for long. My chest was bursting. I opened my mouth to get one big, quick breath of air, and as I did so, the Grand-Eyed Witch poured the entire contents of the little bottle down my throat. Oh, the pain and the fire! It felt as though a kettle full of boiling water had been poured into my very mouth. My throat was going up in flames. Then very quietly, the frightening, burning, searing, scorching feeling started, spreading down into my chest and into my tummy and on into my arms and legs and all over my body. I screamed and screamed, but once again the gloved hand was clapped over my lips. The next thing I felt was my skin beginning to tighten. How else can I describe it? It was literally a tightening and shrinking of the skin all over my body, from the top of my head to the tips of my fingers to the end of my toes. I felt as though I was a balloon and somebody was twisting the top of the balloon and twisting, and the balloon was getting smaller and smaller, and the skin was getting tighter and tighter, and soon it was going to burst. Then the squeezing began. This time I was inside a suit of iron and somebody was turning a screw. And with each turn of the screw, the iron suit became smaller and smaller so that I was squeezed like an orange into a purpley mass with the juice running out of my sides. After that, there came a fierce prickling sensation all over my skin, or what was left of my skin, as though teeny, tiny needles were forcing their way out through the surface of the skin from the inside. And this, I realized now, was the growing of the mouth fur. Far away in the distance, I heard a voice of the granite which yelling, 500 dozens! This stinky little carpenter has had 500 dozens, and the alarm clock had been smashed, and now we are having instantaneous action. I heard clapping and cheering, and I remember thinking, I am not myself any longer. I have gone clear out of my own skin. I noticed that the floor was only an inch from my nose. I noticed also a pair of little furry front paws resting on the floor. I was able to move those paws. They were all mine. They were mine. At that moment, I realized that I was not a little boy anymore. Any longer. I was a mouse. Now for the mousetrap! I heard the grandmother yelling. I've got it right here, and here's a piece of juice. But I wasn't going to wait for that. I was off across the platform like a streak of lightning. I was astonished at my own speed. I leaped over Richard's feet, right and left, and in no time at all I was down the steps and on the floor of the ballroom itself and skittering off among the rows of chairs. What I especially liked was the fact that I made no sound at all as I ran. I was a swift and silent mover, and quite amazingly, the pain had all gone now. I was feeling quite remarkably well. It is not a bad thing after all. I thought myself to be tiny as well as speedy when there is a bunch of dangerous females after your blood. I selected the black leg of a chair and squeezed up against it and kept very still. In the distance, the granite witch was shouting, Leave the little steampot alone! It is not worth bothering about. It is only a mouth now. Somebody yelled, We'll soon catch it. Let us get out of here. The meeting is over. Unlock the doors and shove off the Sunshine Terrace to have tea with the idiotic manager. Bruno. I peered around the leg of the chair and watched the hundreds of witches fit, walking out through the doors of the ballroom. When they had all gone and the place was absolutely silent, I began to move cautiously about on the floor. Suddenly I remembered Bruno. He must surely be around here somewhere too. Bruno! I cried out. I wasn't seriously expecting that I would be able to speak at all now that I had become a mouse, so I got a shock on my left when I heard my own voice, my own perfectly normal, rather loud voice coming out of my tiny mouth. It was wonderful. I was thrilled. I tried it again. Bruno Jenkins, where are you? I called out. If you can hear me, give a shout. My voice was exactly the same and just as loud as it had been when I was a boy. Hey there, Bruno Jenkins, I called. Where are you? There was no answer. I puttered about between the seat legs, trying to get used to being so close to the ground. I decided that I liked it. You're probably wondering why wasn't depressed at all. I found myself thinking, what's so wonderful about being a little boy anyway? Why is that necessarily any better than being a mouse? I know that mice get haunted and then sometimes get poisoned or caught in traps, but little boys sometimes get killed too. Little boys can be run over by motor cars or they can die of some awful illness. Little boys have to go to school. Mice don't. Mice don't have to pass the exams. And mice don't have to worry about money. Mice, as far as I can see, I have only two enemies, humans and cats. My grandmother is a human, but I know for certain that she will always love me for whoever I am. And she never, thank goodness, keeps a cat. When mice grow up, they don't ever have to go for war and fight against other mice. Mice, I felt pretty certain, all like each other. People don't. Yes, I told myself, I don't think it is at all a bad thing to be a mouse. I was wandering around the ballroom floor thinking about all this when I was spotted another mouse. I was crouching on the floor, holding a piece of bread in front of Pose and nibbling away at it with great gusto. It had to be Bruno. Hello, Bruno, I said. He glanced up at me for about 2 seconds, then went right on guzzling. What have you found? I asked him. One of them dropped it, he answered. It's a fish paste sandwich, pretty good. He just spoke with a perfectly number voice. One would have expected that a mouse, if it was going to talk at all, would do so with the smallest and quickest voice you could imagine. It was terrifically funny to hear the voice of the rather loud-mouthed Bruno coming out of the tiny mouse's throat. Listen, Bruno, I said, now that we are both mice, I think we ought to start thinking a bit about the future. He stepped in and stared at me with a small black eyes. What do you mean, we? He asked. The fact that you're a mouse has nothing to do with me. But you're a mouse too, Bruno. Don't be fooled, he said. I'm not a mouse. I'm afraid you were, Bruno. I most certainly am not, he shouted. Why are you insulting me? I haven't been rude to you. Why do you call me a mouse? Don't you know what happened to you? I said. What on earth are you talking about? Bruno said. I have to inform you, I said, that not very long ago the witches turned you into a mouse. Then they did it to me. You're lying, he cried. I'm not a mouse. If you hadn't been so busy guzzling that sandwich, I said, you would have noticed your hairy paws. Take a look at them. Bruno looked down at his paws. He jumped. Good grief, he cried. I am a mouse. You wait till my father hears about this. He may think it's an improvement, I said. I don't want to be a mouse, Bruno shouted, jumping up and down. I refuse to be a mouse. I'm Bruno Jenkins. There are worse things than being a mouse, I said. You can live in a hole. I don't want to live in a hole, Bruno shouted, and you can creep into the ladle at night. And I said, and nibble through the packets of raisins and cornflakes and chocolate biscuits and everything else you can find. You can stay there all night eating yourself silly. That's what mice do. Now, that's a thought, Bruno said, perking up a bit. But how am I going to open the door of the fridge to get at the cold chicken and all the leftovers? That's something I do every evening at home. Maybe your rich father will get you a special little mouse fridge all to yourself, I said. One that you can open. You say a witch did this to me? Berna said. Which witch? The one who gave you the chocolate bar in the hotel lobby yesterday, I told him. Don't you remember? The filthy old cow, he shouted. I'll get her for this. Where is she? Who is she? Forget it, I said. You don't have a hope. Your biggest problem at the moment is your parents. How are they going to take this? Will they treat you with sympathy and kindness? Bruno considered this for a moment. I think, he said, that my father is going to be a bit put out. And your mother? She's terrified of mice, Bruno said. Then you've got a problem, haven't you? Why only me? He said. What about you? My grandmother will understand perfectly, I said. She knows all about witches. Bruno took another bite of his sandwich. What do you suggest? He said. I suggest we both go to and consult my grandmother, I said. She will know exactly what to do. I moved towards the doors, which were standing open. Bruno, still gasping part of the sandwich in one paw, followed after me. When we get out of the corridor, I said, we're going to run like mad. Stay close to her and all the way and follow me. Do not talk and do not let anyone see you. Don't forget that just about anyone who catches sight of you will try to kill you. I snatched the sandwich out of his paw and threw it away. Here goes, I said. Keep behind me.